Okay. Good morning. So in the last class, we have discussed about the asexual reproductions. In this class, from this class, we are going to discuss about the sexual reproductions. So for the any human, for any organisms to maintain their continuity of their life in the world, they have to go through some of the processes, right? So there is one mechanism that is reproductions. This one process. This is the mechanism by which an organism which continue their lives continue their life. So they maintain the continuity of their life. Okay. So there are two modes of reproductions. The first one is asexual reproduction. The second one is sexual reproduction. In asexual reproductions, we have seen there is no involvement of any gametes. There is no need of two parents. A single parent also produce offspring and they can multiply. But in sexual reproductions, we need two parents. There should be involvement of two parents. Okay, like one sperm and one egg should be there. That form and they form one zygote. From that zygote, there will be further development. They converted into embryo. From that embryo, that is a fetus that develop into embryo. After that, there will be development of a offspring. Okay. So in that, sexual reproduction in plants as well in animals, both are happening in animal as well as in plants. So now we are going to discuss about the sexual reproduction in plants. So sexual reproduction in plants involves two components, that is male and female, to produce their offsprings of the same kind. Like we can say that a bull cannot alone produce calves. Like a female sheep cannot alone produce a new ones. Like if there is male, so they need require female. So a female cannot produce their offspring alone. They need male. Okay. So there should be involvement of two opposite sex. So both the sexes, male and female, are needed to produce a new offspring. So if we talk about a flower, in flower there is some components like, and that flowers vary in their shape, size, color, but their mechanism is same as every flower, right? So there are some components of flower, that is calyx, we have corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Androecium, we can say that is the male part of the flower, and the gynoecium is used to say that it is the female part of the flower. Androecium, in androecium we have stamens, that when we used to say that staminate, and in the gynoecium we used to say carpel or pistillate. In androecium they have stamen, and each stamen is consists of stalk and the filament, and this small anther is present on the tip of the filament, and in that anther there is pollen sacs, and in that pollen sacs pollen gets. So androecium is the male part of the flower and gynoecium is the female part. So here we have a typical flower. We can see here, this one is corolla, the attractive part of the flower, that is colored one. We used to say that is corolla. The calyx, this one is the calyx, and this one is ovule. In this one is the part of the androecium. This one is the part of androecium. This is the part of androecium. This is anther. This is filament, and they are present on stalk, that is filament. And in that anther there is pollen sacs is present. Like if this is anther, so pollen sacs is present like this. They have pollen sacs present like this, and in every pollen cells there is a pollen is present in that. So that is anther. This one is filament. This consists the we for the single unit we used to say that is stamen, and that whole part is known as androecium, that is male part. Then again we used to come to the gynoecium. In gynoecium, the upper tip of that part, that is called stigma. The part on that stigma is present, that is called style, and this part is called ovary or ovule. This whole system is known as gynoecium, and sometimes we used to say that is pistil or carpel. Pistil or carpel. In that ovule, eggs is present. Okay, so this consists gynoecium. In each ovule carries with an embryo sac. So you can see here, this is ovule. This one is ovule, and in that ovule, embryo present, and each embryo consists some eggs, and that egg is represented to the female organ system in the flowers. So in the sexual reproduction, these two mechanism is present. The first one is pollination, and the second one is fertilization. So what is pollination? So it is a mechanism in which there is a transfer of pollen grain from one flower to the other flower to the stigma. So what is generally pollination? So if this is one is flower, this is another plant. Okay, or you can say they have same. Okay, okay. Picture is there. Hmm. See, so this is the example of one plant is there, and they have some flowers. Okay, so in that flowers, see, this one is flower one, this is another flower, this is another flower. Okay, so the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma, that is called pollinations. That pollination can be self pollination, that pollination can be cross pollinations. So what is pollination? The transfer of pollen grain, the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma of flower. So if this is the part of gynosia, and if this is the part of androecia, so pollen grain is present on the anther. The pollen grain will transfer from one flower to other flower on the stigma. That is called pollination. Pollination is generally two types: self-pollination and cross-pollinations. In self-pollination, what will happen? See, this is the flower, and this is one plant. Okay, this is not another plant. This is only one plant, and they has three flowers. If the anther of this flower is transferred to the stigma of the same flower, then we can say that is self-pollination. If the anther of stigma of the same flower, if the pollen grain of the flower is transferred to the same plant to the other flower stigma, same plant to the other flower stigma, that is also known as self-pollination. But if their transfer of pollen grain, if their transfer of pollen grain from this anther from one plant to the other plant of flower of the stigma, that is called cross pollinations. So during the transfer of pollinations, there are some agents which play an important role. Like if there is one butterfly, like we used to say, we do not we should save our honeybees, because in 90% of flowering plants, honeybees contribute a major role for the pollinations. Okay, so when honeybee body is like that, they have legs. In that legs, there is a pollen basket. They used to take the pollens from and they keep that in pollen baskets. And whenever they used to go to take the nectar to the other flower. So that pollen grains is attached to the stigma of the flower, and that how the pollination will happen, and after then fertilization will happen. So these are the some agents. So like that, there are some agents which play an important role. Like, so if these agents are, it may be transferred, that pollinators may be transferred through the use of water transport, that they can may be transferred due to they can transfer by wind they can transfer, by water they can transfer, by insect, that is honeybee belongs to the insect, so they can transfer through the insect. So they are called pollinating agents. So pollination is the first and important event in the development of the fruit and seed. So pollination is followed by fertilization. So the first pollination will happen, after then fertilization will happen. So this is about the self pollination and cross pollination. So there are some advantages and disadvantages of self pollinations. Like, what are the advantages of self pollinations? So self pollination is certain in bisexual flowers. So in bisexual flowers, bisexual flower is the flower in which male and female present in that same flower, that is called bisexual flower. And what is unisexual flower? Unisexual flower are the flowers where the male is present in other flower of the same plant, and the female is present on the other flower of the same plant, or maybe other plants. So that is called unisexual flowers. Like, one sex is present in one flower, that is unisexual, and bisexual, in one flower two sex is present, that is male and female both are present, that is called bisexual flower. So flowers need not depend on agents of pollination. So in self pollination, there is no need that the when butterfly will come, after then they will take pollination, after then they will pollinate it. It's not possible. It's not like that. So the anther that pollen grains will erupt, and after then they will pollinate the same flower that present on the same flower stigma. So that is called self pollination, and on that time they don't need any, and they do not depend on any agents. So there is no wastage of pollen grains. Why there is no wastage of pollen grains? Because if this flower is there, see, if this is a flower, and if the self pollination will happen, so what will happen, this is the anther, and from the same anther they will transfer to the same stigma. So do you think the pollination will be hampered? So it won't happen, because they are consumed by here. So there is no wastage of flower. But if there is possibility, if butterfly will carry or any honeybee will carry that pollination, so there will be possibility that sometimes by the they used to go here and there, and sometimes pollen grains can be waste, but here there is no any possibility that pollen grains is going to waste. So these are the some advantages of pollen grains. And so what are the disadvantages of self pollinations? So the disadvantage of self pollination, the seeds are less in number, because the seeds are less in number because uh, in self pollinations, so sometimes there is a viability problem. So because of that, there is some disadvantage of self pollinations. So in that, the seeds are very less in number in the self pollinations. But and endosperm is minute. So endosperm is the component in the fruit, which from where they used to get food. Like, if there is seed, in seed there is, like, we have you have seen the coconut. In coconut there is an endosperm present, like that white kernel part, that is called endosperm. And what happened if coconut is go side the beaches or in the seas region or the coastal regions? So what happened, that endosperm gives food to that seed to for the development of their seed into the new plant. So endosperm, so more the endosperm will they have, more the growth of the seed will they have. But they have a less minute, and they have minute endosperm. Then the sperm endosperm is very minute, so therefore the seed produce weak plants. So if they don't have that much energy, how they will produce the strong plants? So that's why endosperm is minute, and they have less food material reserve in that endosperms, and because of that reason the seeds produce weak plants. So new varieties of plants cannot be produced during the degradation of the plants. So what will happen? There is a self-pollination. So in self-pollination, there is no any variations. So if there is no variations, so there will be possibility that sometimes there will be genetic uh, uh, there is some genetic what we call damages. genetic damages will happen, genetic losses will happen, and after the sometimes that plant will be degraded. So because of that, the new varieties of plants, so in the self pollination we do not able to produce the new varieties of plants, and because of that reason the plants, that degradation of plants, the result will be there will be degradation of the plant. So these are the some disadvantages of self pollinations. Then we have cross pollinations. So what is cross pollinations? So for the self pollination uh, we use the term autogamy. Autogamy. For the cross pollination we use the term allogamy. Okay. For the autogamy we used to say, we used this term for the autogamy for the self pollination, and for the cross pollination we use the term allogamy. So what is cross pollination now? So the same thing, the transfer of pollen from one anther to the stigma of the another flower, that is called cross pollinations. So what is so if there will be confusion, like what is self pollination? Self pollination is transfer of pollen grain from uh, same flower, the transfer of pollen grain from same flower to the uh, stigma of the same flower. So that is called self pollination. And what about this? Like transfer of pollen grain from same the transfer of pollen grain from anther of the same flower to the stigma of the same plant of the flower, that is also known as self pollination. But what is cross pollination? The transfer of pollen grain from anther of the A flower to the stigma of the B flower plants. So that is called cross pollination. So the transfer of pollen grains of a flower to the stigma of another flower of a different plant, the same species, is called as cross pollination, and that is allogamy. So what are the advantages of cross pollination? So the seeds produced as a result of cross pollination develop, germinate properly, and grow into better plants, and that is cross pollination leads to the production of new varieties. Why there will be production of new varieties in the cross pollination? Because when the what will happen, there will be cross pollination will happen. When the cross pollination will happen, there is a lot of variation will produce, and if there will be a lot of variation is produced, there is a lot of segregation. And if there is a lot of segregation, we can say there is a lot of variations, and because of that variations there will be some due to because of that variation there will be some adaptations will be developed in that new varieties or subsequent variety. There is an adaptation will be developed, and because of adaptation, like the climate is changing. So when we used to say that, like uh, the earlier people used to live on 100 years, 200 years, but nowadays because of the climatic conditions, there will be some problem is happening in our genetic material as well, that we are not able to survive for the longer period. Because so why this is variations, like of the, if you talk about the further generation, what will happen, we the gene is not affected only by about the parent material. The gene is also affected by the environmental factors. So like how we are suffering from the pollution day by day. So what will happen, if there will be no any variations will happen, then what will happen, the offspring will be dead. So if there will be variations, that there will be some mutations in the gene, what will happen, that offspring will have the potential to defeat to tolerate that environmental process, and then they can, after then they are going to be survived. So we can say there is a variation and there is a chances of survivability will be increased. So this is how in the cross pollination the same things happen, and the cross pollination will lead to the production of new varieties. Like there will be some variation, and because of variations there is new adaptation, and the survivability of that organism will be increased. Okay. So that is called these are some advantages of cross pollinations, and the seeds in the cross pollination are more viable, and they are more viable, and they are produced in the large number. So in the cross pollination the seeds are produced and they are more viable. Like in self pollination these are not viable, and they also produce big plants. So what are the agents of cross pollinations? So the different agents, like the organisms which carry or which can helps in the transfer of pollen from the another from one plant to the other plant, or one flower to the other flower, that we can say these are the agents. What are agents? So we can say whenever we used to go to the market, or whenever like LIC agent, LIC agent what they used to do. So they generally connect the LIC company to the customer. So they are doing they are these are the person who are connecting LIC company to the customer. So these are called agents. So what are they are just doing they are just connecting people from, they are just transferring the premium, and they are just transferring the what we call the service from one company to the consumer. So we can say they are the agents. Like that, the organisms which are responsible, and they are for transfer of pollen from one location to another location, we called as a pollinating agents. So these are the flowers to different plants. So this takes place through agency of animals. The pollen glands can transfer to the agency of animals, and after the agency of insects, winds, and water. So these are the agents of cross pollinations. The pollination by birds called ornithophily, and the pollination by insects and animals. Okay. Zoophily. What is zoophily? So, what is zoo? Zoo means something which is responsible for animals, that we call like zoological park. Like in zoological park, we are generally going to see the animals. Okay, so that is zoological park. Botanical park. What are the particulars? Can we see any animals in the botanical park? No, we can't see any uh, uh, what we call animals in the botanical park, because it's like botany. It's the flowers, orchids, flowers. We can see plants, different speak in botanical park. In zoological park, we are going to see the animals. Okay, so like that, we have zoophily. Zoophily is something that in zoophily, what is the pollination is carried due to the help of animals and insects. That is called zoophily. And in animals, insects, the birds also come. Squirrels, insects are attracted to the bright petals of the flowers. These flowers are also large in size and have a sweet smell. Some of these flowers have nectar and a sweet scent. So this is the most common of all methods of pollination. This kind of pollination is called zoophilic pollination by animals and birds. So these flowers are large in size and have a sweet smell. Some of these flowers have nectar and a sweet scent. See, the nature is so beautiful. When the nature has created, so the creator has think that everyone is get benefited from one organism to the another organisms. See why this cross pollination, when we see the roses, or when we see the any other flowers like marigold, why we love the flowers. Can we see that we do not love a lot of orchids? Okay, we do not love a lot of orchids, but whenever we used to see that that marigold is there, when the rose is there, tuberose is there. So these things are attractors. Why they are attractors? Because these are the characters of the flowers. If there is no any attraction, see these are the plants. They have a very peculiar colors. They are so attractive. They have sweet, they have scent smell. Why? Because of that reason, the insects can be attracted, the animals can be attracted. See, if I don't have any benefit from anyone, then why I will help them? So if uh, like that, in flowers, what will happen? So if the flowers will be attractive, if the flowers will have a lot of nectar, if the flowers will have a lot of sweetening index, if the flowers will have a colorful, so why is these things? Because the animals will, if the animals will get these things, they will attract to that flower. And what will happen? Because of that attraction, by mistake, that flowers also uh, like they rubbed through the pollen grains, and that pollen gets attached to their body. And when that animals will go to the other flower, they will also pollinate the other flower, and this is how both are benefited. So because that plants can't move from one location to other location, but they have to maintain their continuity in their world. So how they will? So they have their mechanism. They use agents. They have attract. They have a lot of beautiful colors. They have sweet scents, so they attract other animals. And because of that attraction, by mistake, that animals is get pollinated, that get adhered with their pollen grains. And this is how pollination will happen from uh, one plant in the cross pollinations. So that is called zoophily. So the pollination by animals and birds. What is anemophily? That pollination by wind. See, uh, in anemophily, the flowers pollinated by air are mostly small in size and without any attractive color, smell, and nectar. See, they don't have any attractive color, they don't have a smell, they don't have nectar. Why they don't have any nectar? Because these pollination, their pollination is happening because of wind, and wind is nothing. Uh, See, zoophily is the in which they need attraction of flower, they need sweet scent, because they have to attract other organisms. Otherwise, if the organisms won't come, they can't be pollinated, they can't continuity of their lifespan, life for the further generations. But in anemophily it is pollinated by wind, and they don't need any agents, so they don't have any attractive color, they don't have a smell, they don't have nectar, right? So they produce a large number of pollen grains to make up for the wastage of pollen in times of transit. So what will happen? See, in zoophily, if there is if one insect will come, like honeybees came, okay, one flower of if honeybees came from one flower, okay, in sunflower honeybees came, what will happen? When the honeybees will feed to the nectar, on that time by mistaken the pollinators will be adhered to their body, and when we used to, and it will visit to other flower, that that pollen grain will be stick to the stigma, and that will be pollinate. But in anemophily, what will happen? So they release a lot of pollen grains, a lot of pollen grains by mistake. If they will produce 1 lakh of pollen grains, then after then what will happen? By mistake, one or two pollen grains by stick to the stigma, and after then will be pollinated. So because of that reason, in anemophily, because of that reason, that flowers produce a lot of pollen grains, that by mistake, by there is some chances that they can be pollinated. So that's why there's a lot of wastage of pollen grains in happening anemophily. So the pollen grains are dried and powdery, and hence are easily carried by the winds. See the age. So how should be the characters of pollen grains? See, if there will be wind, okay. So which type of material will be blown by the wind? So the things which is dried one, the powdery form, they can easily that will be blown from one place to another place. It will be sticky, that it won't transfer from one to other location by the wind. So that's why the reason the flowers, their pollen grains are also dry, they are also in powdery form, and that's why they are carried by the wind. See, this is the creator of nature, how amazing. The flowers is also adapted like that. So some pollen grains even have wings. See, some pollen grains have wings, they have wings that they will easily transfer from one flower to the other flower because they have wings. If they won't have wings, so they can't simply carry pollinators from one to another location, right? So these are the peculiar nature of the flowers, that they also have wings. So stigmas are large and protected, so the stigma should be large. It seems obvious. If the stigma will be small, if the stigma, see, if this one is flower, right, and this one is pollinators, so if the stigma should be large, after then will happen, what will happen if this is one is stigma, if the stigma is large, so if lot of lakhs of crores of pollinators will is, so by chance that one or two can be stick, after then pollinators will be pollinated, after then it will be pollination. But if there will be small, if there will be small stigma, what will happen? A lot of pollinators will go. Sometimes it may be possibility one can go and one cannot go. So that's why the stigma is also very large and protruding, even branch and feathery. So their stigma is branched and even sometimes feathery. Why it's feathery? Because if they will be feathery, they can blow easily, and even sometimes have branch. Branch, if they will attach. So like in maize, if you have seen the tassels is present as a maize. Maize is has silky hairs. Why silky hairs? That they can attract the pollen grains. Like maize is mostly produced through the cross pollinations. So the flowers pollinated by wind are called anemophilous, that is grass and pine. So the grass and pines also have anemophilous, they have cross pollination, right? They don't have this other pollination agents. So they are the things that's pollinated by wind. Then pollination by water. So pollination by water, that is hydrophily. Okay. So this pollination takes place in water plants or plants that are adapted to water habitat, that is Vallisneria. This pollination is known as hydrophily, and the flowers are small and inconspicuous. What will happen? The flowers will produce and they release pollen grains into the water. They release pollen grains into the water, and that's why the pollen grains of that flower will be very small and very inconspicuous, that we can't see from the eyes even. So they are very small, and if they produce a large of pollen grains, that by mistake they will be pollinate other stigma. So these all are the things about the pollinations. So in the pollination, we have discussed about the what is pollinations, self-pollination, cross-pollination, autogamy, allogamy, the terminologies. Then agents of pollinations, okay, in cross-pollinations like zoophily. Then what is the ornithophily? Then anemophily. and the pollination by water we have discussed. Now we will deal about the fertilization. So what is the fertilization? So when the pollination is transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, each pollen grain has a protective walls called exine and intine. See, exine is the hardest material on the earth. Exine is the hardest material on the earth. No one can break the exine. See, so it is the protective wasp. The exine has that pollen grain. See, this is the pollen grain, right? This is the pollen grain. This is the pollen grain. This one is the pollen grain. So in pollen grain, this one is sperm. This one is sperm. This one is sperm. This is pollen tube. This is tube nucleus, and this is pollen grains, right? So these are the exines. Exines. So in each pollen grains have protective walls. If this one is pollen grains, if this one is pollen grains, so they have protective wall. So this one is protective wall that is called exine and intine. Their protective wall exine and intine. The outer wall exine is thick and it has a small pores called germination pore. See, this is germination pores. The inner wall is thin and elastic. The inner wall is thin and elastic, and that is intine. So these are the germination of pollen grains. We will discuss this thing. So in germination of pollen grains, if pollen grain falls on a suitable stigma, so after the transfer of pollen grain, it will transfer to the stigma. So if the pollen grains fall on a suitable stigma, it starts germinating. It will start germinating. So once the transfer of, if this is pollen grain, so if it will transfer to the stigma of this there, so the pollen grain start will be the they will start germinating. They will start germinating, and after then what will happen? A mature pollen consists. After then, the pollen grain transfer to the stigma. That is from the endoecium that transfer to the gynosia, the female prophet. After then, what will happen from the stigma region? That style also develop. So this is a very beautiful mechanism we will see here. See, a mature pollen consists of two cells. The large one is vegetative cell and the smaller is generative cells. So what vegetative cell is there and generative cell is there. The vegetative cell starts growing and emerges through germination pore. It develops through the style as a long tube known as pollen tube. The generative cells get into the tube and divides into the two male gametes. See, Hmm. This one is process of fertilizations. So what happened? So the first what happened? That pollen grain stick to the stigma. This one is a stigma, okay? This one is stigma. Pollen grain stick to the stigma, and they have two cells. First one is vegetative cell and generative cells. Vegetative cell, what they are doing? Vegetative cell are doing, they are generating the pollen tube. This one is the pollen tube. This one is the pollen tube, and then is generative cell. So what is generative cell? From the generative cell, the nucleus is present, and the pollen tube is generated, and from that pollen tube, that generative cell which contains nucleus, that the chromosome present of the female part that is present in the generative cell, from when the pollen tube developed from the vegetative cell, from the same cell, that generative cell is also transferred to this ovary. Okay, so at this time the pollen tube bursts open. The pollen tube enters into the embryo sac through micropyle. The generative cell gets into the tube and divides into two male gametes, that is sperm. See, so the vegetative cell starts growing and emerges through the germination pore. It develops through the style and as a long tube known as pollen tubes. Uh, so the generative cell gets into the tube and divides into two male gametes, that is sperm. Then the process of fertilization. So what will happen? The pollen tube enters into the embryo sac through micropyle region. See, this one is the micropyle region. See, there's three regions in the pollen grains. This one is micropyle. This is chalaza, and this one is integument. Chalaza region, Chalazal region, micropyle, and this both side is called integument. So when the pollen grain germinate here, it won't goes through this. Okay. So it will come and it will enter through the micropyle region. So from the pollen tube, it entered in the embryo sac. One of the gametes, the pollen tubes enter in the embryo sac through micropyle regions. They enter into the pollen grains through micropyle region, not from the any other like integument region, Chalas region. If you go to the higher studies, you will see that there is some pollen grain which also transfer from Chalaza region, integument region. But most of the uh, pollen gets enters to the pollen tube enters to the micropyle region. So at this time, the pollen tube burst open. The pollen tube burst open. Gametes released from the pollen tube and enter into the embryo sac. And one of the gametes fuses with the egg, and the other fuses with the secondary nucleus. So what will happen? The genetic cell at comes. So the genetic cell has two nucleus. So one nucleus is one of the gametes is fuses with the eggs. One of the gametes fuses with the eggs. So if they have two eggs from the genital cells, so one is gametes with the eggs, and the second is see, these are the nucleus. See, they have eggs. So what will happen? Some one of the eggs is fuses with the that eggs. One of the gamete is fused with the eggs, and the other with fused with the secondary uh, secondary nucleus. So this one is secondary nucleus. See, this one is egg. This is secondary nucleus. What it after then genetic cells are two gametes. One is fused with this one, and after then one is fused with this one. So that is secondary nucleus. The fusion of a male gamete with egg is known as fertilization. So when the fusion of male gamete will happen with the egg, when it will happen with the egg, that is known as fertilization. The fertilized egg is known as zygote, which develops into embryo. So the first fertilization happen. After that, there will be development of zygote, and that zygote later develops into the embryo. Then we have double fertilization. This is the concept. Maybe it will come into your exam, because when I was giving my exam on that time, this question have asked what is write the diagram and what is double fertilizations. Okay, so they can ask in the exams the mechanism how the double fertilizations takes place. Okay, see, double fertilization. The other male gamete fuses with the secondary nucleus. The secondary nucleus is deployed in the fusion of this nucleus with the second male gamete is known as triple fusion. See what will happen. First, this was his pollen tube. Pollen is came attached to the stigma. After then, pollen tube is developed. They have two nucleus. Uh, see, from the beginning, we will see that pollen get transfer of anther to the stigma. After the stigma, that pollen will viable. After that, they develop pollen tube. That pollen grains have two cells: vegetative cell, generative cell. Vegetative cell play a role into the generation of pollen tube. Generative cell have two nucleus, that is uh, two nucleus. The one nucleus is the one gamete is fused with the eggs. The other nucleus fused with the secondary nucleus. Okay, and the pollen tube enter through the micropyle region. See, pollen grains came. They do not enter from this. We are talking about this is the chala region. This is chalaza region. This is integument region. This one is integument region. So see, the pollen tubes developed and they come downside after they enter into the micropyle. They do not directly enter in the chalaza. What I was trying to say. So this is how micro they enter the pollen tube is enter into the embryo sac. This is the embryo sac ovule, and this is how after that one is fused. So that the above nucleus is called as antipodal cells, and the one that is called egg cells, and that nucleus is called synergies. So these are the double these are the embryo sac. After then what happened? See, this is after that genetic cell is there. So what happened? The release of a sperm cells, genetic cells. So what happened? So one is fused with the eggs, and others fused with the second nucleus. See, zygote is there. After that, two nucleus is there. So one is transferred into the eggs and one is transferred to the secondary nucleus. So that is called double fertilizers because two double fertilizers happening here. One is fusion with the gametes and one is fusion with the secondary nucleus. So after then what happened? The zygote will form. From the zygote, the embryo will develop. So the fusion of this nucleus with the second male gamete is known as triple fusion. Okay. The triple fusion nucleus is called endosperm nucleus fusion because it develops into a sperm. So the fusion of this nucleus with the second male gamete is known as triple fusion. So what will happen? If this one is fused with this one, what will happen? Triple fusion happens. See, the first fusion, the second fusion, after then again both are fused. So it will become triple fusion. And this triple fusion, they develop into endosperm nucleus. And because of that endosperm, they have a very nutrient present, like in coconut, we have endosperm used to drink that endosperm. So it is very nutrient, and that endosperm had a high uh, food material present in their endosperm, and that is used for the uh, other growing purpose like seed germination purpose. In that activity a lot of takes place there, so they need also food for the growth purpose. So that is endosperm that is 3n. See, this one is zygote 2n, but endosperm in coconut that is 3n, that is called triploid sometimes. Endosperm is a nutritive tissue meant for the development of the embryo. The process of fusion of a male gamete with egg and the other gamete with secondary nucleus is known as double fertilization. Then what are the after fertilization? What are the post fertilization changes will happen? So the ovule develop into the seeds. Whatever the ovule we have seen, that will be developed into the seeds. The integument of the ovule develops into the seed coat. So if you see any fruit, what will happen? See. So these were the integuments, right? So the ovule, this ovule develop into the seed. Okay, this integument develop into the this integument develop into the seed coat. Okay, and this whole things will develop into the fruits. This one develop into the fruits. Okay, so still, do you have any questions regarding in this topic? What is there? So that is all about the sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. So let's discuss about the reproduction in human beings. Then first we'll discuss about the male reproductive system. After then we'll discuss about the female reproductive system. So male reproductive system, the male reproductive system in human beings is composed of following parts. They have testes, present there. They have testes. Then vast difference is there. Testis is there. Vast difference is there. Scrotum is there. Bladder is there. Prostate gland is there. Penis is there. Urethra is there. Ureter is there. Then seminal vesicle is there. So every components of the male reproductive system has their separate functions, right? So in testis, what is testis? So testis is a pair of testis. There is a pair of testes which lie in a skin pouch that is called scrotum. So that is a scrotum that is suspended outside the body below the abdominal cavity. And what why it present outside the body? Because they need maintenance temperature for the testis below the body temperature. So if the body temperature is 28 degrees Celsius, so the scrotum, the temperature should be less than 2 degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Celsius below the body temperature, like it should be 26 or 25 degrees Celsius, because in the testicles there is the production of a sperm takes place. So because to production and for the storage purpose, for the life of spermatozoa, we need some definite temperatures. Okay, so that's how the uh, testicles present in the scrotum, that is uh, kept outside of the body. Okay, that maintain the body temperatures, and this is necessary for optimum sperm productions. Testis primarily serves the function of sperm productions, and sperms are the male gamete. Apart from that, testes also produce testosterone. Like these are the testosterone hormone is there, and because of testosterone hormone, there's a lot of physical changes happen in the body of the male. So testosterone is the called the male hormone, and is it responsible for the developing secondary sexual characteristics like beard, coming a beard, okay, then building muscles. These are the because of the male hormone. Okay, so these are the testes. Then what is vast difference? So vast difference is the tube which carries a sperm to the seminal vesicle. See, this one is testis. If this one is testis, so we have vast difference. So if the sperm produced there, so what will happen? Because of that vast difference is the pipe, and through this sperm transfer to the seminal vesicle. Okay, the sperm transfer to the seminal vesicle through the vast difference. What is seminal vesicle? This is the place where sperms are stored. This is the place where sperms are stored. Secretions from the seminal vesicle and prostate gland add up to the make up to the semen. See, this is the prostate gland present is there. So what is the use of prostate gland? If there is any use or it's simply given, there's a lot. There is every components of the male reproductive system has their different functions, right? See, so what is the use of seminal vesicles? So this is the place where the sperms are stored, secretions from the seminal vesicle and prostate glands add up to the make the semen. So what will happen when the sperm which is transferred from the testis through the vas deferens that will be stored in the seminal vesicle, and prostate gland is there which make lubricants to the semen that it will easy for the mobility of the sperm. Okay, so that aids to the semen. So what is the penis? So it is a muscular organ which serves the genital urinary functions, and the urethra works as the common passage for urine as well as from sperms. So that is called penis. Then move to the female reproductive system. So in the female reproductive system, the female reproductive system is human beings is composed of following parts. The first one is uterus, then fallopian tube is there, then ovary is there, the vagina is there. So these are the components of the female reproductive system. So in uterus, this is the pear-shaped hollow muscle. You can see this is the structure of female reproductive system, human female reproductive system. So uterus is present there. So what is the function of uterus? So uterus it's a pierced hollow shaped organ. So and uterus is the place where the embryo gets implanted and develops into a newborn baby. So what is uterus? So what will happen? These are the pierced separations, and these are the place where embryo gets implanted and develops into a newborn baby. This is the same things that converted in the womb. Okay, so the wall of the uterus provides safety and nutrition to the growing fetus. So what will happen after fertilization in human beings? After the fertilization of human beings, when the sperm will transfer from male to the female uh, uh, reproductive system, what will happen? The zygote will form, and from that zygote will directly transfer to the attached to the uterus wall, and from that they used to get the nutrition from the uterine wall, and they will develop into the embryo later. Okay, so and that embryo later develop into the fetus. So what is the fallopian tube? Fallopian tube is there. This one is the fallopian tube. Okay, so one fallopian tube comes out from each side at top of the uterus. The fallopian tube is in finger-like structures called fimbria. So they have the finger-like structure here over there that is called fimbria, and fertilization happens in the fallopian tube. And the fertilization when the see what happened when the sperm transfer through this process, when the copulation, when the mating happened between male and female. So when the then what happened? The sperm will transfer from this region, and what happened, the sperm will transfer from this region and the fertilization takes place to this region. See, this is the fallopian tube. Here the formation of zygote takes place. After 1 to 7 weeks, that zygote will transfer and get implantation. That is called implantation. That zygote transferred from fallopian tube to the uterine wall. That is called implantations, right? So the fertilization takes place in the uh, fallopian tube. Then what is ovary? So there are two ovaries. See, so there are two ovaries, the first one and the second one. So there are two ovaries, one near each fallopian tube. Ovary produces the eggs or the female gametes. So what is the function of ovaries? So the function of the ovaries, they produce female gametes, and all the eggs are produced by the ovary when the female is still child is still in the womb. So what happened when see for the if you talk about the male, the sperm produced after the puberty, after the attaining of the age of 14 or 15 years, the testicles start producing the sperms. But in if we talk about the concept of female, in that ovary, what happened when the female girl which lives in the womb of their mother, on that time only that eggs is already developed. Egg is already immature eggs is already developed in the womb of the uh, that mother, if there is girl child is there. So all the eggs are produced by the ovary when the female child is still in the womb. One egg matures in each ovulation cycle and released from the ovary, that is called menstrual cycle. So what will happen? So whatever the eggs which is produced in the uh, whatever the eggs which produce will have to produce, okay, in the when the girl attain the puberty. So at the age of 12 or 14, they the girls generally attain the uh, age of puberty. So what happened, the egg is already presented when the girl is when the girl was in the womb of their mother. On that time only, the once the egg will be developed in the wombs of their mother. And what happened that every time once they will attain the puberty, at every 14th time and every 14 days, that ovary is released, that egg is released, that matured. Uh, and if there will be copulations, they will fertilize, and if there will be no copulations, they will go through outside the body. So that is called menstrual cycle. Okay, so because of that reason, every 14 days there will be every 18th every 14 days there will be some cycle, that is called menstrual cycles. We'll see here. So one egg matures in each ovulation cycle and released from the ovary. The egg is caught by the fembrya and transferred to the fallopian tubes. So then what is the vagina? So the cervix, that's the mouth of the parts open to the vagina. So vagina is a muscular tube like organs which serves as the passage for the sperm and also the canal during the childbirth. So for the passage of the sperms for the male genitalia to the female genitalia, so there will be some passage should be there. So that is the use of vagina is there, that provides pathway to transfer sperm from the male to the female uterus. Okay, then what is puberty? So puberty in human beings are complex animals, and hence there is a distinct phase in their life cycle which marks the onset and attainment of sexual maturity. So this is period is called puberty. So the time period or the phase where the human beings started to attain their sexual activity and their sexual maturity, that is called puberty. It usually starts at 10 to 11 years in the girls of in the uh, if it generally starts in 10 to 11 years of girls in the girls, and around 12 to 13 years in the age of boys. So it usually ends at around 18th year of age in the girls and at around 19th year of age in boys. And the puberty its end in the 18th years of the girls and in 19th years in the boys. So since the years during puberty and in teens, so hence this phase is called teenagers. So when we used to say that these are the teenagers, so what is teenagers? So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So in this time, what happened? The puberty, the girls and the females, uh, the girls and the boys will have, these are the time period where they used to get the maturity, sexual maturity. So that's why we used to this the teen. So these are called as teenagers. So what are the so we see a lot of changes during puberty in the boys and even the girls. So what are the changes we observe in the boys during puberty? So the boys suddenly grow in height dramatically. Voice becomes deep and the Adam's apple. See, this one is the Adam's apple. Becomes prominent. Shoulders become broad and body becomes muscular. And the facial hairs begin to grow. Hairs also grow under the armpit and in the pubic regions. So that is the changes we observe during the puberty when the boys attain the puberty. So what are the changes we observe in the girl during puberty time? So the voice becomes thin, shoulders and hip become rounded, breasts gets enlarged, and hairs grow under the armpit and in the pubic regions. So these are the these are the things we observe in the uh, during the puberty of the girls. And there is some sexual dimorphisms, so the physical dissimilarity in the male and female of a species which give them different appearances called sexual dimorphism. So sexual dimorphism is something that there will be some physical differences we can observe in the both sexes by observations like physical appearance only. So what are the sexual secondary sexual characters? So these are the features which highlight sexual dimorphism are called secondary sexual characters, like mammary gland in the females, and the boys have their beard. These are the sexual secondary sexual characters. What is menstruation? So menstruation is a trait in which it is unique to humans and some primates during each evolution cycle. So the uterus species prepares itself in anticipation of a possible pregnancy. So the uterine wall develops an additional lining. They develop into the additional lining. So the egg is not fertilized. It gets disintegrated and so does the additional lining in the uterine wall. The fragments of disintegrated tissues shed along with blood. This is observed in the form of bleeding through the vagina, which can last from 3 to 7 days. So the whole sequence of events during ovulation is called as menstrual cycles. And the bleeding which occurs for few days is called menstruations. So the first menstrual flow is called menarche and the last menstrual flow is called menopause, which happens in the late 40s of the age of the female. Then we have reproductive health. So for the better uh, uh, so because of reproduction is the uh, very essential procedure to maintain the continuity of their any animals. So there should be some reproductive health issues there. Okay, so for the better reproductive system, for the better uh, uh, development of the offspring, and for better development of their wombs. So we have to be careful about the health as well. Okay, so there's a lot of disease also because of there is some fatality in the reproductions. So there's a lot of reproductive health issues there. So in human beings are different than other animals because they have the power of thinking. We have the power of thinking. A dog cannot think like go to this space, go to the other places, but we are the only one who have the power of thinking, and they have to obey certain moral values and need to behave sensibly in most of the aspects of life. So beginning of puberty does not mean that a person is psychologically ready for the process of reproduction. So if someone is become puberty, if someone is become puberty and they have attained the sexual maturity, it means not that person is very ready uh, for the process of the reproductions. For a human beings, reproduction involves more than just producing an offspring, as any act of sex has the potential of fertilization, so taking care of contraceptions become important. Moreover, the act of sex also has the potential of creating many sexually transmitted diseases. Examples of sexually transmitted diseases are gonorrhea is there, herpes is there, syphilis is there, AIDS is there, hepatitis B is there. AIDS and hepatitis B are incurable till date. So AIDS and the hepatitis B are the diseases which transmitted by the sexually transmitted diseases. So these diseases doesn't have any cure till date. We have developed science, we have developed technology, we are so developed in anything, but we are not developed that much that we are able to cure the AIDS and the hepatitis B. So even the curable STDs are potential dangers, not only physically but also psychologically. So reproductive health involves preventing the chances of STDs and preventing unwanted children. Reproductive health means a couple should be able to enjoy the reproductive phase of its life without taking the burden of gigantic family. So this here we will end the class of this reproductive system of the human beings. So we have discussed about the sexual reproduction in the flowers and the sexual reproduction in human beings. So thank you for the joining and have a great day ahead.